Dr. Fowler is actually going to introduce our keynote. She is the chairman of the Department of Information Systems and Decision Science. Yes. Did I get it right? I got it right this time. Yay. Here at University of Baltimore.
Good morning, still, a little bit. Welcome to UB. Has anybody been here before? Yeah, excellent. Okay, well, I'm very happy for us to have been a sponsor for this, and it's been great hearing the sessions this morning. I've already heard people talking about things that I find fascinating, so my personal interest is in encouraging girls to go into tech, same as all of us here, but at the high school and college level. So one of the things we're most proud of at the minute is a cyber camp that helps kids in high schools, and the teachers come to UB every year. And that's about getting people who aren't interested in STEM at all to realize that they can be interested in this stuff. So I've already heard people talking about things that I am interested in knowing about. So this has already been a valuable beginning for me. So thank you for the contact. I had never heard of Tech Girls or this summit until Gloria sent me a note, so it's been great. So my job now is to introduce Kelly, and now I've lost the quote. I asked her how she'd like to be introduced, and she said, "Nah, don't do that." So, but I have to quote, when you have an awesome speaker, you have to mention at least one thing. So I'll pick one of the quotes, which I think is one of the top 5 women in VC entrepreneurship from Forbes. So that's kind of the strata we're talking about. And also I hear she's an awesome speaker and is happy to take off her shoes if required. So, I always like an informal. Yeah. So that's it from me. So Kelly, please take it away.
Thank you. Turn that on. So hello, good morning, and wonderful to see everyone. I sort of limit the introduction so I can say, who am I? My title lists me as a speaker and strategist. What does that really mean? I think it means I'm a startup or a start over, and I seem to do a lot of start overs in my career. And I would say at this point, I think I'm proof that you can do anything. So, as mentioned, I've been listed in Forbes as one of the 5 women changing VC and entrepreneurship. I've been listed on Fast Company as one of the 25 smartest women on Twitter, which causes me great humor. And as I like to jokingly say, yeah, my father was so proud of that one. That was a really good one. And by Business Insider on these things, if you take anything away, I can say this in a room full of women, we can kind of joke about these things, but to a lot of people they mean something. So my advice, career advice, is someone compliments you on something, say thank you and smile sweetly. And then when you're in a group of really great friends, then you laugh your butt off that you've been listed as being smart on something like Twitter. My favorite of all time, though, is Forbes listed me as an up-and-comer and posted in their, not just even online, it was also made the print publication. They listed me as an up-and-comer one to watch at 47. So that's when I go back to, if I'm proof of anything career-wise, anything is possible. So for anyone who doesn't, also sort of other background, I'm active in the startup community as an accelerator mentor and an angel investor. Sometimes I get to do my best Mark Cuban interpretation and mimic on CNBC's Power Pitch, which was kind of fun. As I said, I'm active in the startup community as an accelerator mentor, but I also co-founded a startup accelerator back in 2011. So people who've got questions on accelerators, the accelerator I co-founded is no longer operating, but if you've got questions on accelerators and want advice on that, putting it out here, I'm going to talk for about 20 minutes and then ask me questions, please, on all these things. I started my career as a lawyer. I went to law school in a decade that had an 8 in it. Graduated in 1991. As I was saying earlier, it amuses me sometimes to find myself in technology because my career strategy, which is exactly the opposite of what I would tell anyone now, my career strategy coming out of law school in 1991 was to know nothing about technology. And the reason for that was an incident where we were in the office on the weekend getting prepared for an emergency bankruptcy case filing that had to go in on Monday. And I'm sitting next to senior partner. So I was in my, probably 24, 25 at the time, senior partner in his 50s. Junior male partner and a senior male associate came in, papers in hand. They looked down the table and said, "Hey, Ward," now I'm there, right? "Hey, Ward," to the partner, "is Kelly busy?" And Ward, who wore his glasses on the end of his nose, looked down, looked back at his paper and said, "If you two idiots didn't plan on having a secretary for the weekend knowing what work we were going to do, then you better learn to type, and you better learn to type fast. That's not why Kelly was called in on the weekend." I sat there and went, shit, if I don't have a Ward next to me, what am I going to do the next time this happens? Complete and utter ignorance. I've never had to do a spreadsheet. My definition of doing online legal research was to call the library. Partner said to me once, he goes, "What do you, woo, you're like my favorite person." Partner said to me once, "Well, what do you do when the librarian's not there?" I'm like, "I leave a message." That's what you do, right? Like I said, it's not a strategy I would suggest now. And if you want to get someone to dial up a conference call and have everyone drop off, I am your person. I am so good at that. And I jokingly say all of that, but it was also a strategy of in that time, in that era, where technology was, where what we thought of what it did and who did what, and particularly in what was a career that was thought of as this, being seen as someone who could do the technology was not a good plan for me. So, like I said, it's a complete opposite strategy that I would say to anybody at this point, other than you should love your librarians. Always love your librarians. So I am now on my next career. I'm writing a book. Future Women in Tech Summit, we can have a whole session on that one. So as I say, writing a book, the process is kind of like climbing Everest. You don't climb Everest and get to the top and think you've finished. You have to get to the top, and then you have to get yourself back down alive. At this point in the book writing process, I feel like I'm at base camp 2. Got the literary agent, I got the book deal. Wish me luck. I got to get up to the top and then back down alive. So we'll stay tuned on that. So at this point, I really feel like I'm someone who's just getting their career started. And as I mentioned before, I was mentioned in Forbes as being an up-and-comer at 47. I'm 50 now. The time in the era where you're like, oh, you're retiring, Kelly. When are you doing this? Like, don't write me off. I'm just kind of getting started. And if there's any career inspiration I can leave this room with is, you're never too old to restart and start over and pursue whatever it is you want to do in your career and your dream. And maybe that is one of the greatest things right now with technology being, bless you, as being this, in many ways, this equalizer for all of us to facilitate and enable us to get role models and inspiration, information, and encouragement to pursue and do what we want to do. So I'm also unapologetically a workaholic. So as I like to say, if I do anything else next in my full career, I want to be be respected in how long I'm working as Warren Buffett or Charlie Munger. So I like to say I'm going to stop working the same age as the elder of those two. Cecily's like nodding. I'm like, what? We're into our 90s now, aren't we, honey, for working? I still think it's one of those things in terms of, you know, we marvel and we think it's fantastic that Warren Buffett goes to the office every day. Switch the gender and we're like, oh, like crazy old lady, stay home and do some knitting, right? Like we still think that. And instead of saying this is fantastic, right? Helen Gurley Brown probably died in her office. She was that magnificent editor of Cosmopolitan magazine. And, you know, I think she still went into the office every day, I think well into her 90s, even though she was no longer the editor. And as women, we need to respect and, you know, do the cheer and really admire women who are still contributing the way the society admires that men do this as well. But, you know, rightly or wrongly, I put my career first, and, you know, I got 2 ex-husbands to prove it. You know, if there's ever a third, we'll see how that turns out. So with all of that and my Canadian sense of humor and self-deprecating as it is, let me go into my pieces of advice, and as I like to say, this is when you get to take notes. You didn't have to tweet or take notes on everything else I had to say in terms of giving you the kick in the butt for your, you know, career faith. There's courageous leap of career faith. There's nothing worse than someone giving you some pithy quotes or some inspiration, and I did this and I met this person, and then you're like, yeah, but that's nice. How do I do it, right? How do I take this away? So here's my 3 pieces of advice, and I will go into each of them. 3 pieces of advice. Build your expertise. Build your network. Build your bank account. You want to have the career that you want to have? Do those 3 things. Those are your 3 elements. So, building your expertise. Be a lifelong learner. Be known for something. Right? You don't get to be the thought leader and, you know, sort of like, who cares how many, you know, how fancy your, you know, your splash page is, or your, I don't know, your Twitter profile or everything else. If you don't have expertise to back it up, who cares, right? You know, in a world when we can all call ourselves experts, be a real one. Be really known for something, and then share that information. Call yourself whatever you want, but if other people don't recognize it, it's an irrelevant title. But be known for something and share that expertise. I also think that inquiry and curiosity are likely to be the only skill sets that are not obsolete in 5 years. I don't know what future skill set's going to be, but we all know that being curious, an inquiring mind, being that lifelong learner, that's going to ensure that you've got that next opportunity. I mean, it's the only way I ever explained how I went from doing bankruptcy law to commercial mortgage-backed securities to becoming manager of professional development at a global law firm, building their women's initiative, building a litigation curriculum. What the hell did I know about litigation? Corporate transactional attorney, right? To building their alumni network, to then going off and working with Janet Hansen, the founder of 85 Broads. Everything is sort of like being curious, having this interest, letting people know what I know. I landed the job with Janet Hansen because I asked the right questions. She wanted to know who the heck I was. That's how I became the first president of 85 Broads. Which leads to the next piece of advice, which is build your network. I have always been and do believe that answers to problems come from networks. Right? Who do you turn to and who do you ask advice from? Who feeds you opportunities, right? Challenge on funding, business solution, HR need. For me, any of those business challenges and problems are based in networks. Who do you know? Who can help you? Who is the right person to ask, and what's the right question to ask them? Everything for me, in terms of a solution, comes back to a personal network or a network you can tap into. And not a single network, as I said, networks, you've got to have a diverse network, right? Opportunities, answers, solutions come from having diverse networks. And that's building networks and being able to tap into them is valuable for a startup, to someone starting a new job, to being the CEO. As I like to say, ideas without a network are just an idea, right? It's like building great technology in a garage and not telling anybody about it, right? In case you haven't figured it out, crowdfunding campaigns without a network, it starts with your own network, fall flat or fail. They take off because you have a network. Think about how many times we've all wondered, why a certain company looks a certain way. Pale, male, and pale. Yeah. Think about the networks people tap into, right? How many times someone says, "Oh, well, there's no women out there who are suitable for that job." Well, who'd you ask, right? Funny, every time someone asks me for a speaker for a conference, they kind of look like me. Oh, funny. They have different body parts. How does that happen, right? Who can you draw upon? Who gets called upon? And then on that note, in terms of networks and things, I would say to always have in your back pocket people who you can suggest quickly for opportunities. Pull upon your own network to promote and advance them. But intentionally build diverse networks. Think about it right now, like who is in your network. I mean, for a while, all my network was filled up with lawyers and bankers, right? I had to build an entirely new network to switch a job from doing the law side, that side of the balance sheet in a law firm, to being over on the management side. Entirely different universe of people. It wasn't enough that I was a lawyer. I needed to know who was on the management side. And I'll scare you, it takes about 16 months to build an entirely new professional network. Don't do it when you need it. Do it constantly, constantly in terms of saying, all right, do the only people in my network, are they in Baltimore? Or the only people in my network, are they from college? Or is it because of my past job, right? Who are they? Where are they? Who's in your network? Where do you think you're going to go? Start meeting those people or those types of groups and tapping into them. So the final one is the Yes Me Fund. As I said, build your bank account. This is your Yes Me Fund. What is it that you want to do, right? What is it you want to be able to do? You may just want to be able to say to your employer, this sucks, I'm leaving, right? It may be able to say, you know what, I don't like our strategy and I want to stand up for what I think is right for this company without the fear of being fired. I can tell you it's highly powerful if you've got a bank account. This is not retirement. This is not 401k, blah, all that 529 if you're saving for that for a child. This is the mortgage or the rent is paid. I have some breathing space. I can think about what I want to do. Because if you aren't your own best investment, I don't know what is, right? Invest in yourself by investing in that bank account that allows you to say yes. So I know when I did that, I remember particularly working on the management side, and it was usually M&A partners, a special breed, mergers and acquisition partner in a big law firm. And they would look at me sometimes like I was the manager. I should just say yes, right? And not argue with them. But I'm like, I don't agree with you. This is not the right route. This is not the right outcome from a performance review. This is not what we should be doing. And I used to think to myself, what's the worst thing they can do? Fire me? Does that happen? I get another job. I'm going to be out on the street. In spite of, I think, all of our fears as women, I'm not going to be out in Queens, living in a walk-up above a bodega, selling chiclets on the corner. Like, that's not going to be happening. All of us imagine ourselves as like bag ladies at some point in our lives. Let's just put that off the table, right? What's the worst thing that, like for me, someone said this to me when I took the job with Janet Hansen, and I was really wondering if I should take this role as a president of 85 Broads, and someone said to me, what's the worst thing that can happen? I'm like, I could come back to this job in this law firm is the worst thing that can happen, right? And it's like funny, it's like the universe is a way, you know, kind of kicking you in the butt and checking your stamina every once in a while. Middle of August, I get an email from a headhunter, Major Lindsay in Africa, major, side of their name, they are like the serious recruiter in the legal space for in-house jobs as well as senior management roles in law firms. And they had a senior management role in a law firm, professional development, what I was doing back in 2004. And they're like, hey, we'd like to talk to you about this role. And I'm thinking to myself, 9 to 5, okay, maybe an 8 to 6 job, San Francisco, 200,000 a year. Oh, shoot me right now, right? So what's the worst thing that can happen? I can call up that recruiter and say, yeah, I'm interested, right? So that's your mindset thing. Get off the table. You're not going to be, you know, living under an overpass. But having that bank account with some stamp, so you have some lung capacity, some stamina to pursue what you want to do. I moved internally at White & Case from professional development to marketing, and the timing of it was in 2008. So take your mind back. That's when the economy was doing the major Titanic in terms of the layoffs in Wall Street, Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns, all of that, like the economy, the recession, all of that crashing. And the firm's tactic during the layoff of attorneys was, here's your package, and there's HR and professional development was telling them this. Of course, it wasn't me anymore. It was my predecessor. And he said, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, and then go down to the marketing department and alumni, where Kelly is, because she'll help you find a job. And I'm like, there's no jobs anywhere. What are you talking about? But the number of attorneys who came down to see me, and they looked at me and they said, we should have listened to you 3 years ago when you were in professional development. We got tied to our paycheck. We got tied to roles where we weren't happy in. While it is shocking and depressing to be laid off in an economic downturn, it's the best thing that's happened to me. I just wish that I had done this on my own accord before. They got tied to a lifestyle. They got tied to, you know, that next shopping trip, whatever it may be, and now they were scrambling. And so I kind of put that out there to be able to say to you, don't ever get yourself in that position that you want to say to yourself, I can't be fired, or I'm scared because I may get fired. Or don't put yourself in the position of going, there's my dream job. It doesn't pay enough, right? Or don't put yourself in the position where you go, you know what, I've got this really great idea for this app, but I need somebody else to fund it, right? Fund it yourself. Create your own opportunities. So we can also have another conversation. If I'm an investor putting money in, that's going to be me telling you how to run something. Joanne's going, but build that bank account. Those other two things are, like I said, expertise and having a network are essential, but having your own bank account and your own way of funding your dreams, right? That fuels everything in my mind. It makes absolutely the difference. So, kind of closing and out on this, I think what you're going to find from this conference and other things that you attend is when you hear and listen and read people's career stories, there's no set career path. I don't think there ever, maybe there has been for certain roles and things in life, but for the most part, there isn't. People do different things. Get inspired by that so you can create your own path. Get encouraged by it. 50-year-old Canadian who knows nothing about tech can now become like the tech queen. Like, seriously, ladies, anything is possible. And I have threatened to learn how to code, and it's going to happen. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Let me get through the book first, and then, I'm going to be on it. I would also say, like, career choices are as much about your career and your money and the life you want to lead and the products you want to create as it is about, kind of just life choices in general and what success looks to you. And I say this, like, what's the life you want to lead, right? What matters to you? What resources do you really need to achieve that? So when you're thinking about life and career and success strategies, factor that in. Surround yourself with people who think and influence and inspire you. Even better yet, find a few that challenge you. As I like to say to people when they're hiring, if you interview someone who starts to really piss you off, hire that person. Clearly approach and problem solve differently. White and Case, when I was there, they used to pride themselves on their diversity, and then we did a little twist at a attorney conference. I brought in someone to do a personality test, kind of Myers-Briggs, but a little different. Oh, we all sat in one quadrant. Didn't matter. Didn't matter what we looked at. We all thought the same way. I'm like, people, can we start hiring in these other quadrants here? This is a problem, right? If we all have the same personality. So, on some of these things in terms of your career, like in terms you build your network, in terms of who you surround yourself, in terms of who inspires you, break out of your own mold, your own biases, the ones that we find other people put us in. Own your career. I really mean that. Own it. Every wart, fault, and fabulousness bit about it. If it's what you want to do it. There's nothing worse for me, like coming from, and maybe this is an analogy for women in tech, but coming from a career in law, where now that I no longer practice law, once you're a lawyer, you're always a lawyer, right? But now that I'm no longer practice law, people congratulate me. Who congratulate for not achieving the highest level in a career, right? All of you are women in tech, and what? Someone's going to look at you going, oh, you're a woman in tech, how, is it really hard? Do you face all this, No, this is great. It's the best damn career that you could be in. It has got the greatest upside, the greatest potential to change the world, right? That's what technology is doing right now. Who wouldn't want to be in it? Yeah, there's challenges. Any career's got challenges. Life's got challenges. Own it. Right? Don't apologize for it. And worst comes to worst, do what, great people do when they're asked the wrong question by a journalist in an interview. Here's your PR tip for the day. Journalists ask you a question you don't want to answer the question you want to answer. Switch it over here. And on this part with tech and women, we've kind of taken a beating this last little while, but I'm optimistic, really optimistic. There are incredible role models out there. And I want us to focus on those, shine the light. Like, for the engineers in the room, if you haven't taken your picture and tagged it with, I'm an engineer on Twitter or on social media, get out there and do it. You're asked to speak or do things, talk about what you know and inspire somebody else to do it. I would say, all of you put your hands up and say, I am not, until I have spiked the ball down at the other end, I'm not going to engage in the conversation about how hard it is anymore. That's just discouraging everyone, right? And it's not encouraging anyone to say, what is it you know and what do you? I'll give you two examples. I did a panel of venture capitalists talking about what's going on in venture. What are they investing in? How do you get a meeting with them? Funny, I found 5 women. I had guys email me and said, I really would like to attend this, but it looks like a women's event. When do we as women look at a panel of 5 guys and go, oh, I can't go, it's going to be a guys' event. They're probably going to talk about jock straps or something. I don't, you know. Right? For all of you, I want you to be seen as experts, right? Refuse to do the other conversations. Let's change the conversation and let's change what the light is of who we are and what our careers are. Example on, oh, I know. I was asked to moderate a panel at the MoDev conference, and they wanted to have a women in tech panel. I'm like, yeah, we're not doing that. I have a panel of women, but we're not doing a women in tech panel. I said, you got to, like the opening keynote panel, first thing in the morning, 400 people, mixed audience. I said, I'm going to lose half of them. It's the half that should hear it. I said, so let's call it something else. And they said, what do you suggest? I said, how to have a kick-ass mobile career. Let's call it that. Fast forward, one of the women on the panel, if we had had the women in tech conversation, I would not have been able to look at the CTO of a DC-based company and say to her, is there a coding language you don't know? And she looked at the audience and she said, I'm kind of crappy at COBOL. I don't really like it. Same reaction. People are like, this woman knows everything. So we went through and all of this, and I finally said to her, I want to explain to a coding audience, tech audience, how you want a Peabody. It's journalism. I get emotional about this because I'm like, are you kidding me? So, who watches CNN during election season? Who gets all excited? We got Wolf Blitzer and Who's Your Face, all up there at the magic wall, and they're like moving things around. She coded it. She's like led the team that created the frigging magic wall. And I'm like, okay, if we talked about being a woman in tech, we wouldn't know, right, that she created that technology. So the last thing I'm saying is sort of like your courageous leap of career faith. Insist always on talking about your expertise. Insist on always talking about your knowledge and what you know and what you have built. And I want to say, then you get more of the career, the stuff that you want to talk about. You know? Let's get off like that other conversation. And that's also part of owning your career and owning what you know by insisting on doing all of that. So, my only other final point that I would say is celebrate the success of other women. It's the only other point I would ever make. I think sometimes we're a little too unkind to each other. Anyone's career success in this room doesn't take away from anybody else's career success. Promote and support each other. Support and promote other women. I always, say people are like, oh, well, what else can I do? I'm like, where are you buying products from? Where are you shopping? No? Who's advising you on your website? Who's building your website? All of that stuff. We need to do it, otherwise, you know what? We're still going to be on the outside kind of career-wise. Thanks for letting me ramble on that last. I'm really 50. I already said that. I'm 50, and I really thought there'd be some of these conversations we wouldn't have to have anymore. So, give me questions, other than on commercial mortgage-backed securities, because I refuse to remember anything about that.